Welcome back to the virtual hangar. It's my favorite time of the year, so we are going to make this super cute candy corn bunting to celebrate the season. Your kit will include one piece of yellow felt, one slightly smaller piece of orange felt, one small piece of white felt, 6 foot of cotton cord, some orange embroidery thread, and a needle, and one paper pattern. So we're going to start with the pattern. The instructions here on the side show that the way that each pattern piece is cut out on the pieces of felt that I gave to you. So we are going to start by just cutting out the big triangle. Don't cut across the stripes. And then we're going to use that triangle and just trace it lightly with a pencil or a piece of chalk, just to get that angle so that all of the pieces are relatively the same size. You should get 6 triangles out of the yellow piece, and if you just line them all up right next to each other as you cut, it should be plenty. And really the pattern here is more of a guideline just so they're all kind of the same size. This is absolutely not an exact science, so don't freak out if your piece of felt is a little bit bigger or smaller. It's really not going to matter that much. I'm going to do this really quickly with a little bit of movie magic and just make sure that we end up with about 6 triangles. Well, exactly 6 triangles that are about the same size. Next, we will move on to the orange. So to do that, I'm going to cut the 2 stripes across the pattern, and we're going to use that middle piece on the orange. So same principle here, just go ahead and lay the pattern down on the felt and trace around it with a pencil. I am going to do a little movie magic here so that doesn't, we don't have to watch me do the whole thing again. And then we are going to take our scissors and just go ahead and cut it out. I start by cutting off the excess. The piece of felt will probably be a little bit bigger than you need. And then I cut the 2 triangles off the end and cut that long line right down the middle. And then I can stack them and cut through both layers at once to kind of make this a little bit quicker. And then pretty much same thing on the white. Go ahead and lay your pattern piece down, trace around it with a pencil, and then cut it out. Again, we need 6 of each piece. So as long as it fits, what's the cat thing? If it fits, it sits. Just approximate. The idea is just to have 6 pattern pieces of each shape that are about the same size so that, you don't have one giant candy corn and one mini one. So once you've got all of your pieces cut out, the next step is to take the embroidery thread. Now, normally you would just kind of work from the skein, but here we are actually going to unravel the whole thing, fold it in half, and then fold it in thirds so that we can make just 6 equally lengthed pieces. I tried doing it the other way where you just cut how much you think you need, but it's actually just a lot easier to make sure that you'll have enough thread to do the whole project if you cut it into 6 pieces to begin with. All right, so we are going to start by threading our needle, and if you watched my videos before, you know how I usually like to thread needles. This is not how we are going to do it this time. This time we're just going to thread it through and then tie a good double or triple knot on the end. We're not doubling up the thread this time like we normally do. Once we've got our thread knotted and our needle threaded, we are going to start sewing. So this whole project is going to be done mostly with the blanket stitch. Here we are going to just line up the pattern pieces. You can see that kind of shape, that trapezoid shape, is what determines where it's going to hit on the yellow shape. So just lay them out, make sure they line up okay. Start from the back of the top left of one of the triangles and sew through to the front. We are going to kind of do a loop in that same hole that we already made. And then once we've got that loop going, just catch that loop with the thread. So the first stitch is kind of a cheater stitch so that the blanket stitch looks consistent all the way across. Then we are going to poke through the back to the front. And again, we're just catching that loop with our thread. I'm going to see if I can do this a little clearer so you can see. There we go. You're just catching that loop with the thread, so the thread that you're still working with catches the stitch and it kind of gives it a nice edging all the way around. So that's the basic blanket stitch. We're going to do that all the way down and across. until we kind of eyeball where that orange piece is going to hit. And once we get to that, we're going to do something a little bit different. So once we've lined our orange piece up, I kind of try and aim that last blanket stitch to get right on the corner of the orange piece because we're attaching it. But we're not just going to attach to the sides. We're also going to stitch across in a simple kind of like cross stitch, but like wide and not really consistent. So what that means is we're going to start from the back, poke to the front through the yellow, and then poke from the front to the back in the orange. Let me get this knot out. Here we go. Okay, so we got our thread in the front. I poked through the yellow. You can see how it loops there, and I'm pulling that tight. The felt, you want to pull the thread tight, but not so tight that the felt gets distorted. And then we're sewing from the back to the front through the orange and the yellow pieces. And then we're going to do that all the way across. So it's kind of like a whip stitch, but I made it cross stitch both to be a little bit decorative and so that the thread would end up on the same side and we could just do one blanket stitch all the way around instead of having to cut the thread, tie a knot, start it again on the other side. So once you've cross-stitched back to the start here of the blanket stitch, we are just going to make sure we take our needle and, here, we can go a little closer. We are going to take our needle here and just make sure we catch that edging from the previous blanket stitch, come through from the back to the front, and then keep going with the blanket stitch from the back to the front all the way to the edge of the orange. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did on the orange level to the white piece. Attach the white triangle here. You see I got the corner on that orange, and I'm also going to kind of cheat the length on this blanket stitch and get the very corner of the white piece as well. Once I have that first blanket stitch, I'm going to do the same. I did 5 cross stitches on the top. I'm just going to do 3 on the bottom. I'm not usually very consistent when I do any sort of hand stitching, so the fact that I got all of them to have 5 and then 3 is really a miracle. So don't stress if you accidentally do your stitches too big or something. I just whip stitch and then cross stitch all the way back and again catch that edging on that blanket stitch. Now at this point, I actually am going to take my scissors and just kind of, you can leave that pointed tip, just even it out. Or if you want, you can take your scissors and round the tip of your felt, and that makes it kind of look a little bit more like candy corn. I'll show you at the end what it looks like pointy and what it looks like rounded. And then you just really simple blanket stitch all the way around through the rest of the hanging part of the pendant. So that's the whole triangle bunting, but we're leaving the top edge undone for now. Once we get through to the edge, I will show you what to do once we go ahead and finish those stitches. Okay, so we're going to grab our thread, and again, we're still blanket stitching. It's the same exact thing. On the top corner here, I'm just going to go from the back to the front of the yellow, but I'm going to make sure that the cord is in that loop. So you're attaching the triangle to the cord, but you're not going to actually sew the cord itself. You're really just kind of tying it loosely around. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. It'll probably be a little bit clearer just by watching than by me talking about it. But you can go ahead and blanket stitch all the way to the end and then just tie a really nice double knot. Once you've gotten to the end there, just tie it nice and secure with your needle as best as you can. The process for the other 5 triangles is exactly the same. It also doesn't matter how closely you attach these to the cord. As long as you don't catch the cord with the thread at all, you can scoot these along the cord to kind of adjust the spacing, get them all laid out nice and cute. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Let me show you the 3 where I didn't trim to make the end round. These are the pointy ones, but I thought they kind of looked more like candy corns with the other rounds. And that is all there is to it. I can't wait to see what you make. I would love to see this with any spooky decorations you put up for this season. And I will see you next time. Happy Halloween!